Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about Kenya Sevens rugby. The pain, the joy, the sweat, the tears, the passion, the excitement, the entertainment, which is Kenyan rugby. It has found a home, and that home is right here on Openside. Tonight, we're joined by two gentlemen well known to the world of rugby, the rugby fraternity, fantastic coaches, former players, one of the most brilliant minds in Kenya that I've met in rugby, and of course a man who's been very successful and could be credited with turning the fortunes of Sevens rugby on the international stage around for this country. Benjamin Ayimba, Kanye Gitonga, guys, welcome. First and foremost, what we're going to do here is, of course, talk about the season that was 2013, 2014. What are your thoughts on Kenya's performance?
Yeah, for me, I think Kenya's performance was a bit disappointing for many of us, looking at the season, this past season and the last season before that. And for me, the big issue is consistency. We don't seem to be winning enough games on day two to get enough points on the board for us to be contending for trophies, and which is what we should be doing. We should be building on every season and getting more points. Benja?
I think same as you, Kenya. It is a big disappointment because the last two seasons we pumped in the most money Kenya's ever seen. As a whole fraternity, 140 million for the last 24 months, and we've not seen really exactly what we wanted to see out of it. The same inconsistency we had while I was coach and when Mitch came on board is the same inconsistency we see today. Maybe flashes of better play in one or two games, but nothing to write home about. So very disappointing seeing as we're putting in a lot of resource and not getting the result.
So, as you can hear from the two gentlemen right here, it's all about inconsistency when it comes to Kenya Sevens. 100 million plus pumped into the team. What did they have to show for it? Well, they've had some dismal performances. I'm looking at that fantastic result against Tonga, 38-0. Then they come and suffer 52-5 loss to Fiji in the plate semi-finals. And you surprise everyone by losing to Canada and then coming and beating South Africa. That is the epitome of inconsistency, Kanye.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about Tonga, I don't read too much into the Tonga result because traditionally, if you look at our win-loss ratio against Tonga, we always beat Tonga more often than not. Looking at Fiji and Georgetown, I think if you think about the history of Kenya Sevens, especially in the recent past, the last two seasons, it's always difficult for us to get our best players to go for the Dubai and the South Africa leg, which are close to each other. But also, if you think about Fiji beating Kenya and you think about probably South Africa beating New Zealand in the last circuit by a big score, what that tells you is that on any given day, if you don't come in and play to your best ability, you're going to be pummeled. And that's what Fiji did to us in Georgetown. So, you know, again, the whole element of selection, consistency, making sure that you're mentally tuned in to produce a good performance. Those are some of the things that are really letting us down at the moment.
Some of the things that could be letting us down. A lot of people will argue, Benja, that availability of our players is also a key factor in why we don't perform on a consistent level.
So why are you spending so much on the players and the team then? What that was meant to bring forth is professionalism or semi-professionalism, so to speak. If you're paying a player who was working 10,000 bob 6 years ago, why are you paying somebody 150,000 just so as he's not consistent in the team? So let's be very. We need to be very candid with each other. If somebody is not there fully, let's compensate what time he's not at work or not at school, as opposed to paying him colossal amounts of money and still giving us the same excuse that we had 7 years ago. It doesn't make sense because then we will never be consistent. Yeah, we know very well, and it's something that has been said. Kenyans, we love our education, we love our jobs, and therefore let's tailor our team to work with this to work with this schedule. And that's why, to me, it does not make sense paying coaches full-time and the players are not there full-time. So whom are they going to coach the time they're off? Because the same money is not trickling down to the grassroots, which is we've just been speaking off camera with Kanye today. If 3/4 of that money was put down to the grassroots and run well, then we should be able to be getting a good feeder side. We are only getting to the feeder side now because there's more kids who want to play the game. And that's the reason why we're getting all these new boys, not necessarily because we planned for it.
And perhaps if we do get a better feeder side through the grassroots, we'll have a bit more consistency. This season, though, that's not been the story, has it? Gold Coast, Georgetown, Las Vegas, you look at anywhere, Hong Kong, we've been disappointing each and every time, sometimes performing so well as expected, other times surprising ourselves with the disappointing displays. Let's just give you a quick reminder of some of the games and some of the results that caught our attention in this circuit.
Thank you very much indeed. Coach by the former Blitz pocket coach. Third event, what a player, Collins and Giro.
Just looked a little in and away, the left hand been twice, the speed and just watch it.
Since he made his debut all those years ago, 2006 at Hong Kong. Brilliant handoff there. Is in.
Like the Canadians, do they got something to the outside? They certainly do. Put it in, Justin Douglas. Kyangi, Humphrey, big stride. Can he get those legs open? Douglas going to run him down, but not enough. Andrew Turnbull, great try scorer. Brunel gets it in. 4 minutes. Here comes a good run for James Eddy. In the Scottish team was Turnbull. And there is Scotland. Set.
That's Collins and Gira. He's got the pace. Chased by Miguel Lucas, but he gets the try.
Sanjera on this circuit. Watch, all on the right arm, stands him up.
We will have
goes.
the kickoff.
Usually in
We'll
Jarrett's
have the
good
kickoff, so let's
defensively.
go.
It is an attack, but he was left wanting there.
Kenya Shield winners below the Cup semi-finals, and that was in Hong Kong. The last good pass. Oh, you know who it is? It's Humphrey Kyangi.
They've had to change their lineup for this game. Came in from Sinatla. That was dangerous, but the quick reaction here from Kenya through Diko Adima. And hey, it's the 1-2 with the brothers combination and Gira to Kyangi.
Haven't got as far as
late final between near neighbours Kenya and South Africa. That is Siabella Sinatla.
Kick behind Collins and Jera, and he beats Colin Jera. All the pace that Jera has.
Geduld, and the gap opens up for the sprinter. He's got pace. And in close support is Jamba Ulengo as Kwaka Smith lifts.
All right, so Kenya finishes the 2013-2014 campaign in 7th place on 84 points. That's 15 short of what they did in the previous season. Gentlemen, what do the statistics tell you?
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to the loss to Canada in Vegas, that was key because Canada walked away with 17 points in the US. We got 7, so that's a differential of 10. And if you look at the final standings between us and Canada, there's a 6-point difference. And then also looking back at Hong Kong, last season we got 3 points from Hong Kong compared to 15 the previous year. And that begins to tell you a story because Hong Kong is traditionally one of those tournaments where you get more points than any other. And you need to perform well in Hong Kong because if you don't, then the gap between you and the next person increases considerably. And finally, for me, I think also looking at teams like England and Australia, who perhaps in the previous year, previous circuit, 2012 ending, didn't perform too well. So last season in the circuit, they managed to really play well. And of course, with the kind of money that you see the US investing with Mike Friday, Chris Brown, who've been with Kenya before, it paints an interesting picture for us going forward. Where are we going to end up in a qualifier year for the Olympics? There's going to be a lot of competition, and you have about 6-7 teams fighting for 4 spots. So
we'll actually be getting to that Olympics talk in just a bit in the second part of the show. 12 points in Australia, 12 points in Scotland, 12 points in England. That's not the story, though, for you, Benjamin. It's about the 10 in Japan and 3 in Hong Kong. Usually, we expect not to perform so well in Japan. You probably walk us through why and what surprises you with the result in Hong Kong.
Japan this time on that leg had been swept around, so it was the beginning of that leg. So we usually started in Hong Kong and played better in Hong Kong because we were fresh. We usually played very badly in Japan because it was wet, cold, and we played a previous tournament. So the luck we had this time was we played in Japan first. 10 points was decent. We never come out with any when we got to Japan. However, that 3 points we got in Hong Kong was measly because if you look at it in the previous season, we got 15 points, which is 12 points astride from this season. However, every team knows that a good performance in Hong Kong definitely gives you a better patch at the end of the tournament, because it is usually the top teams gain up to 22 points as opposed to the 20, which is the usual. So that miserable performance really bogged us down when it came to Hong Kong. So telling from how Canada had been playing, very consistent. If you saw Canada, it was always on the rise, except for South Africa where they faltered. But they were very consistent right after that, and that is what we didn't do too well.
All right, so some of the highlights of that Hong Kong run for Kenya. As you can see, there's some good performances from some of the boys. Great mouth-watering game, tense moments. This game against Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't want to be trading, making enforced errors when you're playing for points, and you're playing teams like Scotland and New Zealand. They'll punish you, and if you give away easy points, either through poor execution of the basics, passing, kicking, then it doesn't give you the chance to actually go out there and collect the points that you want for the circuit. And that's some of the things that we saw in that game against Scotland, I think it was. The execution of the basics just really let us down. Was it fatigue? Is it the skill set that's not improving amongst the Kenyan players one season to the next? Those are some of the questions that probably Paul True has to answer.
Some of the questions
we'll probably let go of being very strict on the skill set, as Kanye says. That last pass, the crucial kick, might look very easy if you practice it very often, but looks like our skill set has dropped a little. We're losing a lot of footballs on the racks and the set pieces. We are not passing very well. We're not crisp at all. And that 2-3 seasons back, we were very crisp in how we pass, and that's what made the difference. So those soft skills ought to be looked at very seriously if we're going to go forward. Of course, now being the qualifiers for the Olympics.
All right, so Hong Kong, that Shield victory, just 3 points, disappointing for the gentlemen in studio. What about the Commonwealth, now that we're seeing some of the results? Day one, you beat Cook Islands, then Trinidad and Tobago. South Africa come and wallop us. You're not a big fan of looking at one result though, Kai.
No, I mean, and that's what I've been saying all along, that our win percentage is 40%. Win 2 games day one, lose the last game of the pool game against a seeded team. And then once you get into the quarters, we didn't perform too well in the quarters for most tournaments. And once you get into that plate semi-final, then we lose again. So if you think about that, that's 3 losses, 2 wins. And the teams we're beating up for the 2 wins are teams that we expect to be beating any single day. So then the consistency comes in against the seeded teams. New Zealand, South Africa. And perhaps for me, the disappointing part about it is South Africa. The game plan that we're implementing against South Africa, it's so similar to what South Africa do. But again, you can't copy what the master is doing and expect to be better than the master. So
yes.
I would think we'd have to play South Africa differently to get the results that we want against South Africa. Playing against New Zealand, again, every team, that's a game that you want to win, because it really tells you where you are at as a team. So 7-19 against New Zealand in the Commonwealth Games didn't look too bad, but then again, if you think about the team that New Zealand had at the Commonwealth Games,
yes.
You need to take that into perspective. Disappointing for me was Wales. I mean, that's a game we should have put away. And Wales are a really physical team. And since Mike Freddie left and Paul True came through, we've seen Kenya becoming a lot more physical. But perhaps, that kind of game plan doesn't suit our players. Doesn't suit the likes of Tall, doesn't suit the likes of Oscar. It's probably suited to Andrew Amonde as a captain.
Amonde, yes.
But for most of the players, it's really ill-suited for them. And those are the kind of things that I'm questioning. Would we be better served having a different game plan for certain teams that are very physical, the likes of Fiji, the likes of New Zealand, the likes of South Africa, and those are the games we are dropping.
All right, so sentiments coming through from studio here. There is a bit of concern when it comes to, the inconsistency. We've touched about that disappointment in the Commonwealth, especially in that game against Wales, which we lost 5-28 in the plate semi-final. But there seems to be a little bit of hope when you look to the future. A lot of people know Collins Injera possibly the poster boy of Sevens rugby when it comes to Kenya. But is there someone in that team, a young upcoming player who can take his place? We'll be talking about that after the break. Fourth highest try scorer this season, third highest try scorer overall of all time. When you hear Kenya Sevens rugby, the first thing that comes to mind is possibly the tall, lanky figure of Collins Injera, the poster boy of Sevens rugby in Kenya. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on his performance this season?
I think it's been quite consistent. I bet he's had a few.
Finally, we hear consistent when it comes to Kenya rugby. There we go.
I think Collins being one of the mantle holders in the team has done very well. His top being the finisher now is getting involved in creating play more, which of course is morphing from being the guy who's given the responsibility to finish for the team and now has to carry the team. We've seen a few mistakes he's made. That's because he got lethargic in his frame of mind, but that is allowed at some point because he's just changing roles, and we need to appreciate that. I know many Kenyans keep asking him to go to the wing, to put in the wing. We must appreciate that now it's got to be his role has got to be more in the midfield and more in the distribution than finishing, and that of course with his speed still up there, he proves to be a very dangerous player.
Now, before the break, we were talking about, the style of play that suits the personnel that is available to Paul True. Collins Injera and his abilities, his age catching up, we're changing roles for him. Does it suit the style of play which has been chosen?
Yeah, I think for me, if I look at the stats, for instance, Collins Injera, 30 tries. The next best is Billy, the kid, at 16. Bill is playing on the wing. He's supposed to be a finisher. Collins, I think, played scrum half, fly half, center.
He played
on the wing.
Season,
yeah, so he was all over the place, but he was still able to get us over the chalk and get us the points. So, at 28 years of age, I think Collins still has a lot to give a national team.
So there it is. As you can see, when it comes to the IRB series, Viri Viri with 52, Collins Injera there with 30, fourth best this season, but third best overall with 189, and slowly stalking that #1 spot.
He definitely will do. He definitely will do. I'm seeing another 4 very good seasons in Collins, and being the creator that he is, Ben has stopped playing and Santiago Gomascara stopped playing. So there's no doubt that he's going to beat this threshold. There's only there's only 41 points between him and the top. 41 tries. I bet he's going to do another 30 this season.
But his role is changing. Won't that limit his scoring?
Even this season, even the past season, he's been playing in the midfield and he managed to do 30 tries. If we do get Oscar Ayodi to play in the center to distribute the football well, and he plays in the wing, this 30 tries is actually at the lower side.
He's talking about 3 to 4 good seasons with Collins Injera. What about after Collins Injera? Wouldn't it be safe to prepare now? Who jumps to mind as the man that could be the leader for Kenya?
Yeah, you look at what Collins is doing now. He's moved from being just a finisher to being a leader. So he's the captain of the team now. He's moved into a playmaking role, which I think has affected him defensively as well, because I don't think he's the best midfield defender within the team. But having said that, I think what we'll see going forward is probably Billy taking the burden of scoring the tries for the team, and probably seeing another player coming through. At the moment, I don't know who will replace Amonde, because if you think about Amonde and Collins Injera, that's really where the leadership of the team comes from. But I don't see anybody within that team that's really putting their hand up and saying, you know, I want to lead this team, I want to be like Tall, I want to be the X-factor player that guys can default to and lead to trophies, because we need that kind of leader. And perhaps that's probably why we keep defaulting to Tall every time. You know, we need to play well in a particular event.
And I like that, because it's all about development and bringing in the youth feeder, as the coach mentioned earlier, from the grassroots. It's all about development. How prepared are we?
My name is Gilbert Makoho Duot. I'm a rugby coach. The rugby development program here in Bunda started in the year 2008 under the leadership of David Weri. David Weri was a sports teacher at Potterhouse School. So then he recruited us. We came in to assist the program. And we've seen it growing. We, as Bunda Age Grade Rugby Club, we are blessed to have an anonymous sponsor from Wales. He's called John Lloyd Masika, and he normally support us in the tournaments, taking them for friendlies, camps, and training programs. They normally bring us food, snacks, and everything.
What I would like to see is the kid that we see in Ronald's Fund, age say 8. He can then go through to the under 10, which is the structure at the moment. Go through the under 10, under 12, under 14, under 16. Then he progresses now into the academy, and then into our senior competition.
Well, it's going to be a difficult challenge, but it's one that can be dealt with. And it's interesting to see that the age grading is already taking effect. And we need to do this for the future of rugby with the kids, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look at the pipeline of players coming through, and Benja mentioned it earlier. We seem to be struggling to get new players coming through to probably, so when you think about leaders in the team, when you think about ball getters, which is something we've discussed at length, we don't have any natural ball getters in the team, someone who can play that DJ Forbes type role, perhaps in the Kenya national team. And all that comes through from sound grassroots development. And that's where the union really needs to be pumping some of the money it's getting into the clubs.
Great argument. Now, gentlemen, as we're running out of time, I'd like to touch on a topic that is, you know, quite delicate for a lot of people. Squad selection. Arguments that it is not open, so to speak. Please elaborate. What do you mean by
I think
not
it's
open?
just pundits like us now, and coaches that have been and still are dealing with the players in Kenya. There's a lot of depth in the Kenyan player base, as much as we're made not to think that there isn't. And there's been questionable selection periods in the past season. We've gone on tour without halfbacks, without natural halfbacks. Well, both halfbacks were in good health and were fit enough. So things like those usually raise eyebrows. I think if a guy like Tall is quarter fit, I'd rather him on the team than anybody else they choose over him. And because Tall is his own person, sometimes does not get along well with the coaches or the selectors. So
I don't know.
very
I'm listening to Benja here, and I'm wondering: are you in agreement? Is it competitive enough, the squad selection?
I mean, you probably have to have some inner workings into why some players are being dropped. Is it discipline? You know, has their fitness dropped? Mentally, are they ready for a particular tournament? Does the coach want to play a different style of football? But for me, the inconsistency, perhaps if you think back to the Commonwealth Games, I think we had this Nakuru player, the 8th man, I forget his name now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so
it was a disaster, wasn't it?
He didn't get his visa on time. Biko Ademo was called up, and Biko Ademo ended up starting almost all the games. So I then had to ask,
what was his role?
You know, who was going to play in that position as a plan B if Biko didn't make the team. And those are some of the things that, for me, perhaps begin to raise eyebrows. And I think to myself, what's going on here?
All right. Well, it's been great having you, gentlemen. Of course, we're just wrapping up the show. Pressed for time. Next season starts on the 11th and 12th of October. Catch those games live. Gold Coast on your World of Champions. What are your projections? What are you thinking? How?
Well, for me, I think Kenya, at the very minimum, should make it to the semi-finals. We really have no excuse. We have experience, we have the players, we have the investments. So a semi for me would be a good way to start that tournament.
We'll be missing Toll in the beginning of the season. And for me, as much as Collins has gotten a bit of experience leading the team, and Andrew is there as a main captain, I still think we'll probably lack a lot of control in terms of what kind of football we want to play. And having seen what has happened in the season and ended up with the Commonwealth Games, it will still be very, very difficult for us to get to the semi-final. However, as Kanye says, we ought not to look at other reasons why not to get to semi-finals. We need to demand for the semi-final slot. However, it is one thing to demand seated here. It's another thing when the board
to do it all together on that page. Benjamin Ayimba, Kanye Gitonga, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. 2013-2014 season is a wrap. And now, from October, we turn our attention to 2014-2015. And after it's done, we'll see you again.